For the longest time, when we thought about homelessness in the UK, we pictured the big cities, right? Places like London. But that picture is changing, and it's changing fast. What we're seeing now is a crisis that's spreading, kind of like a domino effect, into quiet suburbs and high streets, places you'd never expect. Okay, let's get into it. So that brings us to the big question we're tackling here. Why is this problem, which used to be so concentrated, now spilling over and completely reshaping communities all across the country? We're going to unpack exactly how this is happening, one falling domino at a time.
So first things first, we've got to update our mental image. The old picture, homelessness in the inner city, where you typically find support services. But the new reality? It's the suburban high street. It's towns where this level of poverty just wasn't really a visible thing before. And this isn't just about a change in scenery, it's a huge shift in the crisis itself.
So how does a shift like this even begin? Well, the first domino to fall is the active push of people out of the big cities. And let's be clear, people aren't leaving by choice, they are being pushed.
Okay, so one of the main ways this happens is through a policy called out-of-area placements. Basically, when a city council gets overwhelmed and can't find housing for a homeless family nearby, they move them to cheaper places in a totally different district. This isn't some fresh start. It's a forced move that rips families away from their jobs, their kids' schools, and any support they might have had.
And wow, this really shows you the sheer scale of what we're talking about. Just look at these numbers. Of the 42,000 households placed this way, a jaw-dropping 81% come from London. The capital is literally exporting its housing crisis to the suburbs, putting this incredible strain on communities that just aren't equipped to handle it.
But it's not just about these official placements. Cities are also using legal tools, like these protection orders, that can make it illegal just to sleep in a tent. They mix that with something called defensive architecture, spikes on ledges, bars on benches, to physically make it impossible to get by. It creates what's called a balloon effect. You squeeze the problem in one place and it just inflates somewhere else. In this case, the suburbs.
So what happens when all these displaced people arrive in the suburbs? This is where the second domino falls, and it kicks off something experts are calling the suburban doom loop.
First, you've got to understand the backdrop here. The British high street is already in serious trouble. On average, 38 businesses, shops, banks, you name it, are closing their doors every single day. And they're leaving behind all these empty storefronts.
And this is where these two huge problems collide and create this vicious cycle. The empty shops offer some shelter, but then the sight of boarded-up stores and people sleeping in doorways makes the whole area feel unsafe, which keeps shoppers away. That causes even more businesses to fail, which creates more empty shops, and the cycle just spins faster and faster, pulling the whole community down with it. And the fallout from all this? Well, it's pretty stark. As things start to break down, crime goes up. We're talking an estimated 55,000 shoplifting incidents. And that's not per year or per month, that's every single day. This isn't just a number. It's a symptom of a high street in a state of collapse, where desperation and a lack of resources have created a perfect storm.
But look, these push factors and doom loops are really just the symptoms. To truly get what's going on, we need to dig deeper and look at the foundation, the root causes that set all these dominoes up in the first place.
Let's just zoom out for a second and look at the whole country. The number of people sleeping rough in England has absolutely skyrocketed. I mean, look at this. Compared to 2010, the number is projected to go up by 171%. That's not a blip on the radar. That is a massive systemic failure playing out over a decade. And if we zoom in on that trend, there's one group where the numbers are just off the charts. Since 2021, we've seen a nearly 400% increase in homelessness among non-EU nationals. That points to a very specific and very recent failure in the system. And just to give you a sense of what that looks like on the ground, take London. It's the heart of the crisis, right? Well, almost half, 47%, of all the people sleeping on the streets there are non-UK nationals. The point is, this is a really complex problem. It's got multiple causes, and one of them is clearly a major flaw in how new people are being integrated. Now, for UK nationals, the biggest problem is affordability. And at the heart of that is something called the Local Housing Allowance, or LHA. It's basically the money that's supposed to help people on low incomes pay their rent. But the thing is, it was frozen for years, while actual rents just kept climbing higher and higher, creating this huge, impossible gap. And this quote from the charity Crisis UK just puts it in the starkest terms. The
the benefit falls short of even the cheapest rents by an average of £372 every single month. I mean, just imagine that. You're already on the edge and you have to find an extra 372 quid every month just to keep a roof over your head. You can't. And so eviction is basically guaranteed.
And what does that lead to? Well, this. Across the whole of England, just 2.4% of private rentals are affordable for someone on housing benefits. 2.4%. The market has slammed the door shut on the poorest people. There's almost nowhere left for them to go.
So let's circle back to how this affects refugees. There's been this big push to clear the asylum backlog, but it's accidentally created this cruel pipeline straight to the street. So when someone's claim is successful, they're given just 7 days to leave their government housing. 7 days. That's not enough time to find a job, open a bank account, get on a housing list, nothing. You're basically setting people up to fail right from the very start.
Okay, so that all sounds pretty bleak, I know, but it's not the end of the story. Once you understand how the dominoes fall, you can also see where to step in and stop them. There are ways to break this cycle.
One of the most powerful ideas out there is called housing first. It completely flips the old script. Instead of saying, hey, get clean, get a job, and then we'll help you with a house, it says, let's get you a house first. That stable home becomes the foundation they need to start working on everything else.
So you might be asking, does this actually work? Well, the numbers speak for themselves. In pilot programs right here in the UK, an incredible 84% of people were still in their homes after 3 years. So it's not just a nice idea. It's proven to be incredibly effective.
But housing first has to be part of a bigger plan, a real blueprint for recovery. That means, first off, unfreezing that housing allowance so it actually covers rent. It means building way more social housing. It means giving suburban councils the funding they actually need. And it means rethinking our high streets and tackling crime by addressing its root causes, not just with policing.
This quote really hits home. Back in 1966, a film called Kathy Come Home completely shocked the nation and opened everyone's eyes to the tragedy of homelessness. The fact that more than half a century later, that same story is playing out all over again, just in a different setting, well, it's a tragic sign of how badly the social safety net has failed.
Which leaves us all with a really big question. Because this isn't just about policy or economics. This is about the very fabric of our communities. On the ruins of a system that has so clearly collapsed, how do we start to rebuild not just houses, but the trust and the sense of community that we've lost?